make sure that we don't have those types of attacks and those types of infections. And of course, we all know, right, that if one of these organizations that gets attacked with either malware or crypto locker or whatever it may be, right, with some sort of ransomware type of deal, a lot of times they're getting data as well, right? So people refuse to pay, they've got the data, they've already stolen the data, they're going to expose it, on the dark web or even publicly. So, right, we want to stop that, and this is where not only AMP for endpoints comes in, but the umbrella beast comes in. So of course, we can prevent, right, from the umbrella, from those blocks that are, blocking when those, when that malicious attack comes in and then machines get infected or a machine gets infected or a server gets infected, right, one of the first things it may do is try to reach out to a command and control server. If it can't do that because it gets blocked from umbrella, then we don't even get, that attack doesn't even happen, and those files don't get encrypted, right? That's one piece of it. And of course, there is the detection that comes into, right, and be able to actually see those, callbacks to those command and control servers. And then again with AMP, right, continuously looking at what's going on. You've heard of maybe AMP and AMP retrospection, being able to go back in time and seeing what's going on those laptops and on those machines, maybe how something got into the environment. Again, we'd like to think that a single product is a silver bullet, but it's not. And so there's going to be a chance that something does get into the environment, something does get infected, and we need visibility in to see how that happened. And that's where this can absolutely help. And Umbrella is going to be able to help see the types of requests and things that are going out, and being able to quickly pivot on that and respond to it and block. And that's where it brings us right into this, right? In addition, with Umbrella, we have something called Umbrella Investigate, which I'm going to get into here shortly. That goes, above and beyond what you typically would see in your Umbrella console. It's actually a whole other dashboard where you can do research all in one place, be able to see, historical information about a particular IP address or domain, and see that maybe it had other malware that was affiliated with that domain, or any other command and control servers and things like that. So we were talking about the co-occurrence model earlier, right? Looking at other domains that are called on, and when this one is also requested, and we start to tie in and see those different through analytics and the correlation, and we start to see that that's where the reputation of a particular domain or IP address will start to fall, because we see it associated with these other malicious types of attacks. Cisco Security Connector. This is one I alluded to earlier when I was talking about the capabilities on Android now being available. So this has been available for quite a while now, so nothing new, but basically it allows the customer to control their managed devices and be able to not only have Umbrella, but also have what's called Clarity for the iOS, is AMP for endpoints. A little funny story behind that, right? That Apple, we had to work with Apple on that. Apple doesn't like have anything associated with the word malware, so we had to rename it and call it Clarity rather than Advanced Malware Protection. So that's why that name came about. But regardless, right? So we know the strength and the capability and efficacy of AMP for endpoints. Having that tied in with Umbrella, as I was talking about earlier, and now being able to do it on a mobile device is really great. So again, just there are some requirements around it, right? It must be an owned and managed device by corporate devices. Does not work for BYOD. However, within that, right, it gives the corporate, it gives the company a visibility into what's going on the device. They just need to purchase an Umbrella subscription. Obviously, that's based on the number of users. And then they need to have an AMP subscription available, which is based on each device, the number of devices. As I mentioned, it does need to be a managed device, corporate-owned device. And hey, what better to manage it with than Rocky Systems Manager? But again, we know that everybody doesn't use Cisco, the entire Cisco stack across the board. That's okay. So we support other MDMs as well. As you can see here listed, some of the top ones, AirWatch, Mobile Iron, etc. Again, the really cool thing about it, it's completely, basically invisible to the user, right? As far as it running on their machine, right? It gets pushed out through the MDM. And once it's on there, they are protected no matter where they go. So the cool thing is you can enforce that corporate policy on your managed devices, or your customers can on their managed devices, for umbrella. So the umbrella policy that they had obviously not today, but back in the day when they were sitting in their own office, or they're on the VPN, let's say, now they get that same policy enforced when they're at a Starbucks and a conference and a hotel, or even if they're on the AT&T or the Verizon network, they're just on the cellular network, they're still getting that same enforced policy. So this just really underscores that same thing here. Obviously, it's going to help against different types of malicious attacks based on user devices, and of course, it gives the company visibility into what's going on those devices. There's even app visibility built into it as well, and then seeing what those apps are doing. We've seen use cases before where there were apps running on the device, and of course, I'm sure you've heard of it, right? And they're making calls out and sending data to a foreign country somewhere that may not be ideal. So they have the capability to see that traffic and act on it and block that traffic from here. Also, capabilities, in line with integrations, is cloud log export. So when you have Umbrella, your logs get sent to an Amazon S3 bucket. You can actually send it to your own personal bucket if you want to, or Cisco does also provide one for you. And you can actually pull that data from that Amazon S3 bucket into your SIM or your SOAR to be able to correlate data and also make better decisions or alert based on what's going on in the customer's environment. So some of that brings us to the Investigate API. So I was talking about Investigate earlier, right? We have that dashboard that gives you all that additional information, right? A long time ago without Investigate, right? If you wanted to go do a research an issue that was going on, and you wanted to find out, okay, who owns this domain? How long has the domain been registered? Where is this IP registered? Is it in the United States? Is it in Europe? Is it in Asia? All these different things you have to run around and look. You look up an IP address and with Aaron and find out that it was registered in Asia, so you had to go up to APNIC and research the IP address there, and all these types of things that would take a lot of time. Investigate provides you a centralized place to be able to do that. So we know that a lot of customers were asking for ways to be able to access this data without having to log into the dashboard, because it can be very helpful in their investigations and into their SIMs and their SOARs like we were talking about before. So we actually created a subscription for the Investigate API, and just to help keep costs down, because Investigate on its own can get somewhat expensive. We're looking for something that was a little bit more price friendly to customers, and that's where this entry-level Investigate API came in. And I'd say it would pair now with someone who, I'm going to get into the packages and the new packages and things in just a little bit from a licensing standpoint, but it pairs in with somebody who has just either the old umbrella packages like Professional or Insights, or someone that may have the new DNS Essentials, right? Just the basic one, which doesn't include any API capability to Investigate. So that's where this kind of comes in. As far as Investigate goes and those APIs, we've come up with two different enrichment APIs that are available. So we've got one that's called On Demand. So the cool thing about this is it allows you to really, again, you can integrate with that data that's coming from the Investigate console into your SIM or your SOAR. And the difference really here, and I'll break this down in a chart in just a minute, is that you are quota limited to 2,000 requests a day. So again, when you think about it, the number of requests that may come across if you're a larger organization where that may not be enough, you could quickly expand out of that. So if you need that larger amount, and based on a different licensing format, we have these automated enrichment SKUs that are available that kind of take it to the next level for those larger organizations. And we actually have a way to do that in a, I guess, a size type model. So if you can see here, there's the on-demand enrichment over here at the top on the right-hand side. And then we have 3 tiers, small, medium, and large. Excuse me. And then, again, if you want to, because you've got more advanced capabilities that you're using within your SIM or your SOAR, you don't have to have an umbrella package, and you can purchase these as standalone packages as well. So here's the package comparisons, just looking at these. Obviously, there's the Investigate console itself, and that's user-based. You get additional users as you get into the additional tiers of API. But then again, like I was talking about earlier, where we've got quota-based for that on-demand enrichment, that's 2,000 requests a day. And after that, you're basically just rate limited on the number of requests per second. So as you can see here, for small, you've got 3 requests per second. For medium, we've got 12 requests per second. And then when we move it to the large, we've got 48 requests per second. You can see as well, right, obviously there's a cost difference, and this is of course retail, right? But list price for these, as you go up. So that's why, again, I mentioned we make that on-demand enrichment at a significantly lower cost for customers where that makes sense. That's helpful for them. So looking at those things, right, you just compare based on what your customers needs. For a matter of how much data they're going to be doing, how many requests they're going to be doing on a daily basis, what they're going to need, and base it upon that. And just keeping in mind, as it mentions down here at the bottom, right, all those Investigate API packages do include access to the Investigate console that I talked about earlier. And you can go in and drop an IP address, drop a domain, an ASN. You can look those up and see what they may be associated with. And of course, again, if they do happen to exceed their quota, they can always log into the console and manually do any of the research they need to do from within that console. There are associated SKUs with this, right, for Umbrella Investigate. So this is really more just a reference slide than anything else. So obviously there's the console in there at the top, and then we move up all the way through the small, medium, and large APIs for as well as the on-demand SKU listed there. So just for reference. So again, why Investigate? I think I've talked a good bit about why, from a customer use case standpoint, why it's important, why it can be very helpful. It's not for everybody, but if you've got an organization or maybe you're a managed service organization that would be able to benefit from this type of information, it's absolutely 100% an outstanding tool to have in your toolbox to be able to really save a lot of time. And on top of the fact that with the API capability where we can port that information into those other like SOAR platforms, it can be a huge asset to your overall security response plan. And this is just an example, this little a graphical example that kind of shows, without Investigate, okay, I see something come in, all I see is these IP addresses, and that's all the information I have. I don't know if these are good, I don't know if these are malicious. So if we go in and put these in Investigate, we get a lot of information that we find out, okay, the 157, 166 address actually went to CNN. We trust that, that's okay. The 216.35 address, right, goes to another trusted site that we're okay with. However, we have this other one that we found out is actually linked to a malicious site that's hosting malware that actually will go out and reach out to a Russian website and likely, lock down your computer or exfiltrate information and what have you, right? So definitely a good use case where we can see that Investigate would be a huge asset. I'm going to cover this section before we get to, we're going to take another quick break here coming up in just a bit, but I wanted to mention, how we talk about Investigate, but how SecureX kind of plays a role in this as well. Hopefully most of you on the call have heard about SecureX by now. We've done quite a bit of fanfare around it because it has so many different capabilities and is, best of all, free of charge. and has integrations with most and soon to be all of our security products within our portfolio, and works with third parties. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but what I wanted to get to, and what you may see in the screenshot here, so this is now called SecureX Threat Response. You may recall something similar sounding Cisco Threat Response or CTR in the past. So that's now been rebranded to SecureX Threat Response. But the idea is the same. The platform, the dashboard is all the same. It gives you the capability to search data that is coming from all of the different devices within a customer's network and be able to correlate all that information. And as you can see here on the screen, draw conclusions and tie-ins to know, where something came in the network, went to a particular client, reached out to a website, right? We can see this, and even in the bottom right-hand corner, you see the little SecureX ribbon, which I'll get more into as we move forward. But gives us quite a few capabilities, and again, the capability to integrate this with Umbrella and our other security products is huge, and all, again, no charge for that, right? Completely free to a customer that has any Cisco security product. So we can quickly see from this, right, that, again, like I just pointed out, this is a little bit of a blown up view of what you saw in that screenshot. But, we see a target endpoint that came in, we see the target network, we see it reaching out to this malicious domain, we see an email that comes in that may have an attachment. If that attachment's good or bad. Maybe the attachment's okay, but it's got a URL embedded in it that's malicious. So there's just so many things that can be going on. And that's really where the SecureX Threat Response comes in and allows us to see this all in one single place, rather than having to log into the email security dashboard and the Umbrella dashboard and the web security appliance dashboard or the firepower dashboard, right? FMC, right? All these different areas that we may have to log into, we can do it from one centralized location. And on top of that, not only getting the visibility, but getting the capability to act on it. So seeing that, hey, this is a domain that we see as malicious. It wasn't marked as malicious, maybe, or we were, or we didn't know it was malicious. Maybe we had it listed in the always allow list. So by virtue of that, we now know we've got to block that. So we could actually, from this console, without logging into Umbrella, just right click on and block that particular domain. So this kind of speaks to the use cases around that, like I was just talking about. Threat hunting, looking through, finding out, am I impacted by something? We've talked about this in the past when it was called CTR, but being able to go in and put in an IP address or a list of IP addresses and domains, maybe even some SHA-56 hashes or MD5 hashes that we know are associated with a particular malware campaign, and see if we've seen this anywhere on our network based on the visibility that we have with all of those security products. And of course, this helps from the incident response side, as I was saying earlier, because we can actually go in and take an action on what we see, and we can block a file, we can isolate a host, we can block a domain, etc. So overall, right, the SecureX Threat Response paired with what we can do and investigate, just absolutely unparalleled visibility and capabilities and control. So that's really what we wanted to touch on there. This is kind of what I was referring to earlier, right? For the SecureX Threat Response, where we can actually go into the console and say, hey, have I been impacted? So here I've pasted in the name of a file that's associated with a particular piece of malware. I've got indicators of compromise. The cool thing, maybe I went out to Google and I searched for this particular malware campaign that was out there, and I came up with a web page. Maybe it was like Krebs on security or something like that, and listed on the page, or maybe even Talos Intelligence, right? And I've gone out there and I've read about it, seen a lot of details, and here's a bunch of indications of compromise that may be in place. I can actually copy everything off that page. It doesn't matter if there's tabs, bullets, numbering, whatever it may be. The SecureX Threat Response platform will actually parse through all that for you and then tell you whether or not that's in your environment. So by virtue of that, we see here where there's a suspicious IP malicious domain. So again, if it wasn't already blocked for whatever reason, we can go from here and pivot and actually block that domain. Or if we want to look at more information about that domain, we can do that as well. And we can do this. This is all done through some of those APIs that we talked about earlier that are available through Umbrella. Also, back to some of the integrations capabilities. I talked earlier about being able to use those APIs to feed into your store or your SIM platform, and specifically just highlighting a couple here. One being the Splunk dashboard, so that we can import that information in and be able to set up custom alerting based on what we're seeing in our environment, including what's coming in from Investigate. And same goes for IBM Resilient, which is IBM's SOAR platform. So being able to take a look at the queries that are going on in our environment, and then with the API actually be able to prevent infections from potential malware within the environment. I'll go ahead and build this out, just really building on the same thing, on some things that we talked about earlier, right? One being the Amazon S3 bucket that's out there, being able to take the log information from that, feed it into Splunk, and then from there, being able to pull in that intelligence from Investigate, and just again, we're correlating all that data together, and from there, we're able to make informed decisions on policy enforcement. And with that, yeah, that's pretty much built out. So yeah, lots of good from a workflow standpoint, lots of good use cases there. So yeah, at this point, we are done with the integrations and of course the roadmap piece. So what we're going to do now is take another break, and then we're going to wrap this up when we come back. We're going to talk about the SecureX, a little bit more about the SecureX platform, specifically what you can do with Umbrella. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the features, licensing, that type of thing. We'll go over that real quick, and then we'll wrap this up, and we'll move on to CloudWalker. So let's take a 15-minute break. I've got almost right here at the half hour, so let's come back at a quarter till, and we'll wrap this up.